Aloha, everyone. I'm here with my husband, Doug. This is our ninth week of doing this.
Your ninth week.
My ninth week
My
is.
first week.
That's true. So, what's the secret in having great relationships?
Only have your husband on every 9 weeks.
You're pretty funny, aren't you? Nope. It's not perfection, it's not pretending.
Yeah, and there's always going to be something happening.
Always.
Always.
We
And as you
always
like,
listen.
that's right. And as you like to say, stress is always around us.
Yes. Yes, it's never without stress. We always have stress going on. Today, we wanted to talk about relationships and how important that can be. And the pictures that I showed leading up to it was definitely a test of our relationship when Doug came to me with an idea.
With an idea to cycle through all 50 states for our veterans, military, and their families back in 2009, I think is when I actually came up with that. So, yep.
Yep. He sat me down when it was time to do our
Back in
count.
the day when we were manually syncing our calendars.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And he asked me to sit down.
Yeah.
I knew something was up.
Something was up.
When you have close relationships, you know those little tiny indicators that can help you do it. That was something that was definitely testing us in so many ways. Do you want to talk about some of that?
Well, we lived in an RV for the very first time for almost a year and a half, right? So we had to figure that out.
Thankfully, we met someone. That's the other thing with relationships
Yes,
is always have connections. And we made new friends. And that was Bruce Crandall and Arlene Crandall.
that's right.
And Bruce is a Medal of Honor recipient. He happens to be the oldest Medal of Honor recipient right now. And they just commemorated a new building to highlight the heroics of those amazing, amazing veterans.
Yeah, he was one of the helicopter pilots we were at the Yaotrang Valley in Vietnam. The Crandalls are such awesome people. Arlene passed, unfortunately, but between the two of them, they were so kind and generous to us.
We were at an event and I met Arlene first. And I learned that she lived in an RV about 6 months out of the year and they were still married. So I really wanted to talk to her about
their relationship.
their relationship. Yeah. So you can learn from others for their relationship and how they did it, and they advised us.
At Deborah's retirement the following year, Bruce had words of wisdom for me, which was never cycle in front of your wife who has the RV. So that was very good. I never did.
Not with the RV.
Not with the RV. Exactly.
We did have to do it with a
van.
With a van.
Yes,
once.
but that was very important.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, as a part of all of this, you learn a lot when you are, of course, in close quarters. And that was close quarters in the RV. And then also, we were separated each day, right? And so that was because I was cycling and Deborah was taking care of everything else. And then we were most days connecting again at the end of the day. Part of this was each understanding our responsibilities during this activity, which was our life during that time. Everybody's got their own things that they're doing, their own lives. What are the habits? What are the things that you're doing? And so we knew what those were, but we didn't know exactly what each other was doing each day, but we had the framework for that. And then we could reconnect on what those were and sharing that between us. That's why it was such a team event to do it. Right.
And it wasn't the first time that we were under intense, extreme stress. I mean, we had been tested before that.
We got married while you were in the middle of your first command, right?
True.
That's right. 9/11 occurred, and figuring that out while you were still in the Pentagon, I was still in law school.
These are all the kind of decisions that had to be made or circumstances that came up that we had to deal with quickly and figure out what were we going to do next.
Right. And then you went off to Iraq after your second command.
And then I deployed.
Right. And so figuring how to maintain that connection, I obviously didn't know what she was doing.
I couldn't tell him.
No, of course not.
Sometimes we have jobs like that.
That's right.
You can't share everything.
Right. And so part of mine is to kind of keep her connected to what was happening here with an understanding that sometimes she's not going to be able to pay total attention because she needed to be focused on what she was doing downrange. All of that is, understanding that. And then just because we wanted something else to do when she retired, we decided to do this cycling adventure, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
I think you kind of gather there's an affection between us, the love that we have. It's not that we weren't married before,
just not to each other.
just not to each other.
That's right.
We were married actually to other people on the same day when we graduated from West Point. We learned a lot and we have wonderful kids separately, but that love. I think being willing to open yourself up to love after you've been hurt and crushed and feel at a time that you may never find it again. And yet, I always did leave my heart open a tiny, tiny bit.
Well, that's that vulnerability piece that you love to talk about,
I
right?
do.
As being so important for connections and for connecting not just to the world, but to your community and then, of course, to each other.
Yeah, yeah. You have to be willing to do that. Ed Sheeran has a song like that that says, love can really hurt you, but it's the only thing that really means anything. I mean, in our lives.
It's what makes it all worth meaning, right?
I have a thing
Yeah.
on the back of my car. It says, love, and that's heaven on earth. Because being with someone, sharing it, I know not everyone will find a spouse or partner, and first loving yourself. That relationship with yourself is so critical because we come with a lot of baggage. However, we grew up, these days, most people may not have been tested until they leave home, and then maybe they have to come back again because of financial requirements. That kind of love is always at the foundation from an engineering perspective, that unshakable foundation of where you have to start from. I think that being authentic was the next piece,
Hmm.
making sure that I'd been in relationships where the people pursued me because they would say, well, she likes to dance. And then
You were cute too.
you're so good. They wanted to show that they loved it too, but yet deep down they didn't love it. And that came out later in the
Right,
relationship.
right, right.
Now I'm very grateful. My husband loves to dance with
I
abandon.
do.
We both love music. Dancing is one of our things. You have to have some things in common. He golfs. I golfed in the military, but I did not enjoy it. I could not be held accountable for what I said. That's when my rules went out. I could not be held accountable for what I said on the golf course. And so Doug knows that I don't enjoy it. I could do it best ball. I could probably get through it, but he loves
That's
it.
not what
He likes to
advances you,
go
though.
out there.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. And he loves to go out with other people. So you don't have to have all the same interests. In fact, I think you need to have your own independent things. But being authentic, not hiding who you are because the other person doesn't like you doing it. Honey, go knock yourself out. Go play another round of golf. I'm fine with that. I will keep myself busy. When we do have stressors, and we do, each of us have them, it's better when you don't have it all at the same time.
Life is not that way all the time, right? You don't get to plan that
You
stuff.
don't get to plan that. Who knows what the trigger will be? I mean, we've got lots of reasons to trigger the negativity in us. But when you go negative, you break the trust and you shake the foundation of your relationship. There are plenty of people who have a different perspective will say, oh, you just have to accept me the way I am. That is just an excuse to be rude and not be caring and compassionate for the people who are around you. Because if you being you causes them stress, unhealthy stress, then that is not something that you want to give to anybody. I work really hard at it, and my husband Doug knows that
I know you do.
because I'm constantly pushing the envelope. I'm constantly testing those things that are important to me or that I'm finding out. And the other thing, I will talk about one of these things that you have the picture there where we bought the RV and the announcement for this. That's kind of a funny story. It was Doug's birthday, and we didn't even know what an RV really
My
was.
mom was visiting.
His mom was visiting, and we're getting ready to go into the doors to go into the show, the boat and RV show that was in Seattle, Washington. And I remember when he opened the door for us, I said, "We're not buying an RV."
And I did the standard 2-word answer, which is just the thing that you need to learn how to say when you're a husband. Yes, dear.
And then we went inside, and the more we were inside and we were looking, Doug went off on his own, and I went off with his mom. I realized we had been doing this planning for this tour that he was going to cycle on. We were hoping initially that someone would give us their RV. Well, someone was willing to give us a fifth wheel,
Which was very kind.
which was very kind, but I knew I had to do everything myself on this tour.
There
You have to
was-
know what you have to be responsible for, and in that case,
We knew the equipment that we needed to have, and that was going to be a
Yeah.
single where you could take the tow car off yourself and then, bus size, be able to maneuver it yourself.
and the initial RVs were so expensive that I about had a heart attack looking at them when we first toured inside them. At the RV show, they had one that was called Bare to the Bones, had a picture of a dog that looked like our dog Daisy. And the price, although high, was, because having to spend anything to me at that point was high.
We
And
were able to, there was
well,
something we could do to figure it out.
Doug's mom went and grabbed him and said, "You need to come see her. She's in the."
Come see this RV that your wife is inside. I had already seen the RV. Oh,
And you-
by the way.
And if you saw him, he'd already walked through it
Yeah.
and walked out and said, "This is nice," and walked out. I looked at it and it had a jungle theme, and I guess I really liked the jungle theme, and I fell in love with it and realized, hey, I could do whatever I need to here on the tour.
It was called Simba. Lion King had just come out. All
Yeah,
those
it
kinds of
was-
things.
Yeah, we liked it a lot. And so Doug figured it out once he knew that I wanted it. And that was another key thing that happened there was, what do you think?
I would say that we were friends first,
Oh, yes.
right? So we were classmates, but we didn't know each other. I knew who she was, but I didn't know her. She knew folks that I knew. It was only a single degree of Kevin Bacon away. There was all of that. And when we got together, which she's probably talked about in previous versions of this, it was, coworkers and friends. And not really until later was the romance and the intimacy piece a part of our relationship. But the relationship had to exist first. That was where we began to see how you lead with caring for one another. So leading with love, very important. Another way to say that is that you care for each other, right? And then you are being authentic because you're being who you are with each other. And there is no extreme judgment. We're human, so judging comes with it. But to the extent that you can remove that and just, be with each other and understand each other and learn to trust each other, that's where the authenticity, I think, really helps, right? Then your ability is in friendship, sometimes in friendship better than in romantic or marriage relationships, is the ability for the relationship to kind of bounce back, right? So say something happens, your ability to say, hey, the friendship's more important. Sometimes I would never do this, ever, ever, ever. Ha. Sometimes, in marriages, right is more important than
Making things better.
I don't know why that has to be necessarily, but it certainly is the case in lots of marriages that I've seen. And the idea is sometimes you don't need to, being right is actually not the key part of this, right? It's going back to who are you? Who is the other individual? Are you caring for each other?
And how can you make things better? Whatever it is that you're focusing on, how can you make it better?
Right.
And not have to be right, because that can be righteous, right? And negative and unbending. So I had a button, but I'm not oh, here it is.
Yeah.
I have to show it to you because it's not functioning anymore. My husband would say no.
Well, it's better to say no, and then you could say yes later.
That's what he learned, and I do not believe in that. And so I
Whenever
have this thing.
if my kids watch this, they'll know exactly what that means.
I came up with a maybe button. So he would get so strident about a certain topic, and I'd
Confident.
say,
He's confident.
okay, sounded like strident. And I would just say, well, maybe you're right. Maybe.
So eventually you got something that said it for you.
And that helps you bounce back very fast.
Because it's bringing what into the conversation?
Yeah.
It's bringing humor into the conversation.
Yes, you have to have fun with each other.
Right.
And know how to not take each other too seriously or any of those things that might underwrite it.
Which is interesting because there are times when you don't have to take each other so seriously, but you always have to respect the other, right? Making sure that there isn't some gap in respect, right? Humor is great, not at the other's expense,
Ever.
right? At your own expense is
Ever.
fine,
Yeah.
right? But not at
It's
the
not
other's
funny. I'm
expense.
sorry for those of you who like to make fun of other people. It's not funny. I'm sorry.
That's what breaks down trust, unfortunately.
Yes.
Right? Are we perfect at this? No. I think the whole thing of this particular relationship edition here is no, of course not. This is a lab, right? That's your acronym for this, right?
My acronym for LAB is you're
Right.
going to lead with love,
Right.
right? You're going to always every day, and it's not about being perfect at it, but it's always being caring. And then the A is being authentic, not trying to hide, because that comes across in your energy if you're not authentic, and unfortunately pops up in unhealthy, stressful situations when you're not. Because I've had people tell me in relationships, doesn't have to be the love relationship, can be in your friendship relationship, where they agreed to something and then they wanted payback. They wanted you to agree to something else because they really didn't want to agree.
Quid pro quo.
So being authentic is much more important in each of those relationships.
You can have transactions, quid pro quo, but that's not transformational,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's the kind of relationships that I think we strive for. The ones that make us better and the ones that make them better.
Yes. And the B is being able to bounce back fast, because we are human and we have our ups and downs throughout the day. Some of you know that we are also caregivers to two moms, and it's just as if you have kids at home.
Except for the part where they think they're the caregivers for us.
Yes, that's true. That's the other challenge. Now you've got a dynamic of any additional person into that dynamic, and then they've got their own relationship, and then we have our own relationship.
Sure. The fact that it's a lab means that it is always an experiment.
Always. We experiment every day. Sometimes they blow up in our face, but usually it wasn't because of trying. And usually what I love about Doug, he always knows that I have a good intent. I am always trying to make things better. And when you have someone who believes in it, even when the outcome happens in a way that you did not anticipate, then the questions being asked will be that thoughtful way of trying to understand, well, what are you trying, and trying to help get back on our feet and go forward.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're coming to a close right now. Anything else that you wanted to add while we were here?
So I'm going to kind of riff off of the standard Apple products, right? So I'm going to add an I and call it the i.L.A.B.
The i.L.A.B.
And the I is intimacy. And where that is present, trying to make sure that you don't necessarily lose that. And it doesn't necessarily always mean physical intimacy. As a matter of fact, in relationships, oftentimes it's the place where trust actually is held most strongest, right? The strongest. That can be an interesting element, particularly when you have relationships that can be 10 years, 20 years, 25 years, 40 years. Folks will say, how do you maintain it? It is oftentimes because you know each other, but you're always learning about each other. So that's kind of the i.L.A.B. piece.
Nice. I like that. We just added that. I like that. Let's see. There was one other thing I was thinking of, just to let you know. There's so many things that are going on in the world that can trigger us to go in a negative direction. It's overwhelming, the energy that's out there that can force you maybe pick sides and be judgmental. about things. But when you stop being judgmental, you find out that you don't have to. We never yell at each other.
Choose not to be
When you
judgmental.
choose not to, but I think that's one of the keys that enhances the trust and encourages the intimacy. I don't know if Doug ever, he could raise his voice a tiny bit just because he wants to make sure he gets my attention, but but he's not yelling at me. He doesn't yell at me. I've had people yell at me and tell me that I intimidate other people. I couldn't possibly do that.
No, you can't.
That I intimidate other people, and so they were the only ones. They were the only ones who could be honest with me. They had to do it by yelling at me and criticizing me, going negative.
That's what they told you, right?
That's what they told me.
Right.
Yeah, it's not true. No. That's not where you thrive. You thrive. Most people want to be accepted. They want to be loved. They want to be valued.
They want you to listen. So sometimes you have to listen, which means you don't have to be talking. Yeah. You have to be not talking.
I hope that when we're done, that please talk about anything in the comments about what struck you about the time today.
I know that we didn't cover nearly everything having to do with the relationships. So the ideas that you may have, your experiences, because we all have our experiences, the things that you found in connections that were so important to maintaining and building those connections and helping us learn through your experiences and your knowledge.
As you've heard in my previous ones, I'm lumping this under stress intelligence because you could be the smartest person, you could have the best training, best leadership, all of those things. But if you can't handle it when the stress happens, then you're not really achieving what you need to when things matter most and having those priorities. A lot of times it'll come down to, if we're under a stress, it's not about how can I do that? It's how can I strengthen our relationship and work together, and definitely not go negative in any comments that I have about something my husband did or anything you could be judging on. It goes back to that. If you can suspend that judgment and let the love shine through, whether it's your spouse or a friend, new friend especially, it's the key to being able to create quickly and deeply those relationships that can last a lifetime. We have been very blessed, not just in our marriage, which was going 26 years, for our other relationships in our life, yes, with amazing friends and family. Just amazing friends and family. We love you all dearly, and we're so happy that you're in our lives.
I can't beat that.
We'll end here. Aloha.
Aloha.